66 degrees, 33 minutes north. The atmosphere roars, suffocating all biological limits of endurance. Temperature plummets to an extreme level, minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, a limit ruthless enough to completely freeze salty seawater in exactly 4 seconds. Here, a tiny mistake will instantly cost your life. Wisdom cannot save you, only absolute precision. But the reward for this ultimate recklessness is steel cages filled with the pure gold of the ocean. When darkness swallows the continental shelf, survival is no longer a natural instinct. It mutates into a fair transaction. Faith does not warm cracked hands. Compassion is completely non-existent against 40 feet walls of pitch black water. The only thing keeping the blood of these men from congealing in the eye of the storm is the heat of the dollar. Blizzards, raging waves, the Death Casino officially opens. Four species, $50 million. One, Ruthless industry, full documentary. You think the king crab in Norway is a masterpiece of natural migration? A delusional fantasy. In 1961, the Kremlin covertly grafted an armored force into the North Atlantic, a geopolitical curtain disguised beneath the waves. The ocean was forced to harbor an alien occupier. It marches in absolute silence across the deep, ruthless and cold, like a legion of iron tanks crushing every barrier. Under eternal darkness at a depth of 3,300 feet, this biological engine began to self-evolve. They transformed into literal ecological black holes, devouring all life like an industrial shredder draining the essence of corals and mollusks. Each entity is clad in spiked armor weighing 22 pounds, wielding a massive 6.5-foot leg span. Skip the hollow pleasantries. You are thrown straight into pitch-black waters. This compression smashes a baseball bat into sawdust in a millisecond. The ocean Frankenstein is officially awake. They stampede furiously across 6,000 miles of Nordic continental shelf. Untouchable. Even great whites retreat before this army.
Mankind arrogantly believed 1.5 million transplanted larvae would submissively obey to feed a starving empire.
But creation refuses blockades. Nature always delivers the most brutal retaliation. You think these men sail for glorious bravery? A delusional fantasy. They are the most desperate gamblers on the planet. An absolute vacuum seal equivalent to 400 pounds of pole is established. Biological armor, completely neutralizing human. Welcome to the hell of Dutch Harbor. Hurricane winds crush all sound. Towering 40-foot walls of water continuously twist the whole structure. But the true enemy is the ruthless silence of entropy. The killer named Black Ice. At minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, sea vapor crystallizes, packing a 4-inch armored crust over the rigging. Tens of tons of dead weight force the ship to lose its center. "3 a.m. Battered fishermen grab sledgehammers, rushing onto the deck, frantically smashing ice in the dark to save the vessel from capsizing.
The deck transforms into a fatal chessboard, slick and brutal, precisely like the surface of an ice-coated scalpel. Blue collar grit collides directly with blind natural force. A single slip. The survival protocol activates. You have exactly 180 seconds before the body freezes and the nervous system completely paralyzes under the abyss. The hydraulic winch shrieks. The 880-pound steel trap tears through the surface. The moment of judgment. Empty. Not a single biomass. Absolute helplessness. Nature just denied human greed, leaving the phantom of bankruptcy clawing inside the void. The trap shatters the surface. The ocean officially unlocks its vault. Biomass landslide. 100,000 pounds of spiked monsters crash onto the iron deck. Each haul is a lethal dopamine hit worth 25,000 USD. On a 7-day voyage, this is how the fleet extracts millions. Capitalism operates through a ruthless filter. The 6.5-inchy brass caliber appears, keeping only alpha males. Juveniles and females suffer a mechanical purge, tossed back into black foam.
Every move must be decisive. There is no room for weakness or hesitation.
Stripping the apex males triggers a power vacuum. Millions of females multiply unchecked. The invasive plague detonates permanently.
The storm is hunting these steel ships to strip away all the effort of the reckless. Violent 60 miles per hour gusts, betting their lives on the final dive.
Beneath the laser steel blade, 3-foot leg clusters are severed. The brutal wildness ends. Savoring the luxury flesh, do you see the brutal origin? The million-dollar supply chain is frantically chewing through the ocean soul, cold, like an industrial planter shaving an ancient tree. The armored beast is forced into permanent hibernation inside a vault at -US 0.4 degrees Fahrenheit.
Dozens of massive creatures are dragged off the cliff. Mesh bags swell. Persistence begins spitting out cash.
The blast freezer irises all biological traces and Bering Sea rust, rocketing thousands of miles to Asia.
A waterfall of yield landing on the steel deck weighing over 500 pounds. Tens of thousands of USD pulled from the water. Toyosu at 5:30 in the morning is no seafood market. It is a completely silent, financial crushing machine. Absolute cold-blooded ruthlessness of the Wall Street Stock Exchange, right before a total crash. Locked down at -60 degrees Fahrenheit, former monarchs of the ocean lie completely motionless. Experts silently drag bare hands across tail flesh cuts, judging the exact melting speed of Otoro fat. Zero noise. Over $20 million circulates continuously through Tobaga. Ghostly finger signals. The absolute frenzy detonates in exactly 15 seconds. One invisible blink instantly dictates the fate of entities worth $3.2 million. The public falsely assumes these colossal prices stem from rare flavor. The absolute truth is, during the Edo period, this flesh was considered rust-scented trash, thrown directly to stray cats. But the capitalist freezing machine completely flipped the board. The ultimate greatness of the ocean is completely stripped away by monopolistic psychology and ruthlessly quantified onto entirely soulless bills. Acceleration is absolutely not the pinnacle of freedom. It is a biological exile sentence. This living torpedo shreds the water at 45 miles per hour. Down in the abyss, pressure suffocates. Ocean water freezes. The body core boils the blood, maintaining internal temperatures 35 degrees Fahrenheit above the ocean, strictly to ignite the retina. But this is the ram ventilation curse. The jaw remains permanently open, forcing water through the gills. They are no free kings. They are absolute slaves to oxygen. The ultimate greatness of evolution ultimately becomes the eternal prison, locking away the flesh. The ocean is a predator that never compromises. It hunts every mechanical flaw, from the frantic extraction of 200,000 pounds of armored crab, generating $3 million in a 7-day Bering Sea hurricane, straight to this draining survival gamble. Nature absolutely rejects compassion. Combat detonates. The monster violently jerks in the abyss. A steel cable holding 5,000 pounds is stretched to deformation, groaning, twisting, and then snap. The metal mast whips backward into the air at a terrifying 300 miles per hour. It takes exactly 0.25 seconds to penetrate the steel cabin wall, ready to permanently strip away the physical integrity of anyone in its path. A six-figure dollar fortune vaporizes, sinking into the darkness. Under the brainless power of nature, the absolute sweat and extreme recklessness of destitute blue-collar workers, sometimes only trades for empty hands. Catching them is only the beginning. The world falsely believes ikejime is a sacred ritual, respecting natural life. The truth? It is a ruthless, biochemical purging process of capitalism. The clock counts down. They have exactly 15 golden seconds before panic triggers lactic acid, incinerating the flesh. A 6-inch steel spike violently pierces the skull. Gray matter is completely annihilated. A freezing cold wire threads down the spinal cord. Every single muscle reflex is violently locked. Arteries are severed. Boiling hot bodily fluids overflow. Biological greatness is extinguished, murdering every cellular reaction, permanently sealing absolute purity. This is no humanity. This is a mechanical procedure guaranteeing maximum profit margins for elite cuts. The flesh mass is permanently locked. On shore, the kingdom ends. A 3-foot Orochi Bocho blade strikes down. Cold-blooded and emotionless, exactly like a ripsaw inside an industrial logging mill. It slashes directly down the spine. The muscle mass that once dominated the ocean is ruthlessly dismembered into 5 lifeless parts. The elite Otoro cut is officially exposed beneath halogen lights. The boundary between wild nature and extreme luxury is just one single cut. The destitute diving ghosts have drained their sweat, gambling physical limits to exchange for surviving dollars, only for the former king of the ocean to finally collapse upon soulless porcelain plates right in the center of the elite. The Toyosu lights turn off. Welcome to the meat grinder named the Bering Sea. The light is out. A Category 12 superstorm approaches. The life and death gamble begins.
You think ecological disasters scream a warning? A naive illusion. True tragedies always unfold in absolute silence. Beneath a depth of 600 feet, not a single radar wave ashore signals an SOS. Dissecting the life cycle of the crustacean titan Chianoecites, Opelio. Survival relies entirely on the cold pool, a defensive perimeter below 36 degrees Fahrenheit, an invisible wall blocking the ruthless Pacific cod. To forge a polycarbonate shell hard as steel, they endure agonizing molting, trading 7 years of brutal survival, merely to meet the standard for the banquet table. But the ocean betrays them. Water temperature spikes by a mere 5 degrees Fahrenheit. The biological reactor spins out of control. Caloric demand doubles instantly. The Bering Abyss mutates into a frenzied slaughterhouse. Starvation strikes. They turn to rip apart their own kind, devouring each other, then starving en masse within their own empire. 10 billion lives evaporate in silence. An ultimatum from the abyss. Nature shatters against ruthless greed, leaving a graveyard of dead mud. Violent waves are the most brutal killers. An illusion. The real enemy is called icing, black ice forming a 4-inch crust, adding tons of dead weight, forcing the crew into a frantic ice smashing war to stop a capsize. Direct warfare against destructive entropy. The steel ship collides with a furious gale. Towering waves, temperature free falling to minus 49 degrees Fahrenheit. The deck tilts. Every point of equilibrium completely annihilated. A 900-pound steel trap is hurled into the abyss. The hydraulic winch system shrieks, pumping extreme tension into the line. The trap jams on a jagged reef. The waterlogged cable stretches past a deadly 30,000 pound load, snapping. The steel Grim Reaper whips backward through space, a lethal sword splitting the cabin steel wall in a quarter of a second. Exhausted bodies awake for days. Charging into an Arctic grave is not for glory. Betting physical limits as poker chips, merely to smash a $2 million debt. Docking safely with millions of dollars is a victory over the ocean. An arrogant illusion. Cash is no medal for bravery. It is merely a certificate for ghosts who survived long enough to sell out the flesh of nature. Left behind on the seafloor is a guillotine that never sleeps, ghost fishing. Tens of thousands of snapped steel traps turn into unclaimed coffins, continuously luring, starving, and automatically executing over 150,000 pounds of marine life every year in absolute silence.
The final net closes. The battlefield goes silent. Beneath the cold mud of the Pacific continental shelf, thousands of nautical miles away, a 100-year-old biological monster is waiting for the most brutal gold diggers.
Survivors slipping through the 3.1-inch caliper margin slide straight into the live tanks, knocked out by high-intensity oxygenation, forced into a state of artificial hibernation. The rusted, battered vessel hauls 100,000 pounds, limping back to Dutch Harbor. Weathered legs that stood against furious waves now stumble onto concrete docks. Bloodshot eyes of wives scan the hull, silently counting every intact face returning from a brutal 7-day voyage. But the factory doors tear open. Sharp mechanical blades sever the leg clusters. High-pressure jets blast away the wild entrails. Blast chillers lock down time at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The final hull closes, a silent battlefield. The rusted ship turns back amid rogue waves, dragging the armored gladiators, limping toward their final frozen grave on land. You think a creature with an unenclosed shell is the weakest link beneath the continental shelf. A fatal misconception? The truth? That ruthless layer of mud and sand is their invulnerable fortress. Dissecting the monster Panopia generosa, the immortal entity of the Puget Sound Shelf. A colossal siphon stretching 3 feet, drilling through sediment, burying its body forever. Calcium rings on the shell expose an ancient diary, recording precise oceanic fluctuations since the 19th century. This biological storage engine operated long before mankind invented telemetry. Defying biological law, the state of negligible senescence, lifespan hitting 179 years. A century-old Titan possesses cellular health and reproductive power superior to a 10-year-old youth. All laws of degeneration smashed to pieces. Abandoning a closed shell is no weakness. It is an invisible armored design, mutating them into the most fortified biological bunkers, invincible to any tyrant of the abyss. savage survival philosophy. Freedom traded for existence, swimming for exactly 3 weeks, then plunging into black mud, blind, motionless for 2 centuries to purchase immortality. You think this hunt depends on the weather? A naive illusion. It obeys absolute lunar gravity, an invisible force ripping water away from the coastline. Minus tides activate. The survival window cracks open for barely 120 minutes before the ocean floods the mudflats. Commercial divers clamp onto fragile hookah oxygen lines, plunging straight into a negative pressure depth of 30 feet. Forget any illusion of an easy haul. This is mechanical warfare measured in millimeters. The Stinger water cannon blasts high-pressure streams to liquefy solid sand, miscalculate the angle. A collapsing sinkhole buries the diver. Pull too fast. The siphon snaps. The brittle shell shatters. Submerged in 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Churning mud breeds a black fog of absolute blindness. Bare hands claw through deep pits, lined with jagged oyster, reefs like a biological minefield. Dropping into this dark oceanic vault is not for grand glory. They wager their own lives to survive the deadly bank debts waiting to swallow them ashore. Packaging merely to preserve freshness. A ridiculous illusion. This is an industrial brainwashing engine, blasting QR codes to strip away all survival traces in subsea storms, mutating a mutant beast into sterile cargo. A life or death margin. The boundary of 300 USD pound. A lethal sprint across the Pacific Ocean. The iron law of the deck. Absolute ban on fresh water, a single melting ice cube, osmotic shock, cells detonate, 90% of the asset destroyed in 1/10 of a second. Mechanical shackles, rubber banding constricting the shell, forcing the colossal siphon to retract, ruthless, like strapping a straitjacket onto a death row inmate. Blanching in boiling water for exactly 6 seconds. A century-old jet black horny skin is stripped bare, exposing pure white flesh for sashimi, instantly sealed inside the chamber, and IQF flash frozen at -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Massive mechanical fleet, draining the physical limits of fishermen, bending the space-time continuum in 48 hours of ruthless logistics. All of this merely to hijack 2 centuries of a creature's lifespan, exchanged for 3 minutes of fleeting melt on the tongues of billionaires. Digging through deep mud remains a safe privilege. Welcome to the meat grinder known as the Bering Sea. The light dies out. A Category 12 superstorm closes in. The fatal gamble begins. At -0.4 degrees Fahrenheit, the blast freezer completely erases the brutality of the Bering Sea, leaving only numb frozen flesh serving luxury at the banquet table. Pause 2 seconds. But this economy is entangled in an ironic and ruthless trap of nature. Stripping the mature alpha males unintentionally clears the path for millions of females to multiply unchecked. A century-old blunder has caused the macro ecosystem to shatter completely. Stand with DDB Green before the next invasive wave suffocates the planet.